Good morning, afternoon, or evening to you all. As you connect with us from various parts of the world, I am Nihata, your host for today's insightful session. Welcome to this webinar with industry thought leaders from MOURI Tech. As you are aware, the point of discussion today will revolve around the topic unlocking potential strategies for SAP Datasphere adoption. We are streaming live on YouTube, and you'll find the link in the chat window. Feel free to share it in your professional networks. In today's webinar, we are going to explore the need for the data fabric in the current scenario, common challenges faced in adopting SAP Datasphere for data management, and what is BW Bridge and when to opt for it, as well as we'll walk you through our success stories. Also, during this session, we will be conducting two poll rounds of 30 seconds each. We would appreciate 100% participation in these polls. We'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so be sure to share your burning questions with us. We'd love to hear from you and address your queries. A quick announcement before we start the session and introduce you to our panelists. All the attendees are eligible for a 2-week complimentary SAP Datasphere workshop organized by MOURI Tech to explore our discovery services and check how ready are you for SAP Datasphere adoption. Before we move forward to the exciting presentation, I would like you to watch a short video that sets the stage for today's fascinating discussion. Wow, I'm sure that video gave us a glimpse of what's coming up next. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists, Emmanuel Kolgani, Practice Lead Advanced Analytics, MOURI Tech. Emmanuel is a seasoned SAP data and analytics consultant in charge of project delivery at MOURI Tech, with over 20 plus years of expertise in data warehousing, data migration, and warehouse modernization and visualization. He has led projects that drives business value through innovative solutions. Emmanuel is passionate about leveraging technology for informed decision making, fostering data driven innovation. Next up, we have Syed Naqvi, Data Architect, Advanced Analytics, MOURI Tech. With over 14 years of experience, Syed has been at the forefront of data warehousing, modernization solutions by optimizing visualization and reporting systems for diverse industries. Syed excels in transforming complex data into actionable insights, leveraging advanced technologies to enhance operational efficiency and decision-making process. Hi, Manuel. Could you start by telling us why businesses need data fabric in the current scenario and how SAP Datasphere helps?
Thank you, Neha. Before we actually get to that point of talking about the data fabric and its use in business, I just want to give a little introduction to SAP Datasphere for some of our folks who've joined who've not heard that name. So SAP has unveiled a new service aimed at easing the ability to manage and use data by creating a data fabric architecture. Or usually it's a single environment that gives you an ability to integrate data from different sources across the enterprise or organization. Now, this application is housed on the SAP BTP or Business Technology Platform, if you've not heard of that. So it's the platform on which this particular tool is housed. Now, SAP Datasphere is an evolution of an existing tool called the SAP Data Warehousing Cloud. And there's also another tool called the SAP Data Intelligence Cloud. So it's an evolution of both of these tools. And this is now available on the BTP platform as a consumption-based cloud service. Now, coming to the actual question, we all know the realities of the enterprise, right? Within the enterprise, data is scattered across a lot of different internal and external systems. And to add to the complexities of this, you have on-premise system, cloud hyperscalers. You're also utilizing data coming from data vendors. And this is quite a complex thing. And it takes quite some effort and time. Now, usually what enterprises do is they bring all of this data from all of these different systems and they bring it onto one common storage platform. And from there, they try to make sense of this business or try to create reports. This is usually what happens. But the biggest problem with this solution is usually the context of the data and the data logic is lost when you're trying to make this effort. And unless you have a context to the data and you don't understand the reality of what is there within your data, you will really not understand the story your data is trying to say. And that's why we have the SAP Datasphere. I'll try and explain that with a simple example. A lot of times we all understand what supply chain disruptions are, right? So when you're trying to do some analysis on the supply chain disruptions and you have data coming from within an enterprise, data comes from different applications. And so supply chain information, let's say it's there on a COPA application, and you have inventory and finance information on the SAP system. And there are also some third-party ad hoc flat files, XML files, and some data coming from the database, the weather information coming from the internet. And we're trying to bring all of that data onto one common platform. And we're trying to make sense of that data. And let's say you're trying to understand disruptions within the supply chain, and then let's say critical mass data like, let's say, the business partner connection information is not there. Then the whole effort is kind of a waste because we're not able to actually understand where the disruption is. On the flip side, let's say you have all this information at real time and at the moment, then the enterprise is able to really understand or even predict where there could be some kind of issue with a supply chain break. So it is easy to understand that disruptions that happen. And so we need to provide a platform where you're able to see all of that data in real time. So SAP Datasphere enables customers to unify data from disparate source systems, bring it on a common platform, unify that data, both SAP and non-SAP systems, while keeping the context and the logic of the data. That's the advantage that it brings in. Now, the advantage with the data fabric architecture is it unifies, it cleanses, it transforms, and even secures your data, keeps your data secure, providing actionable insights at the moment. So you're able to make decisions at the moment. And SAP Datasphere, with this architecture, allows you to piece together the story that our data is trying to say. Now, how did SAP come about this data fabric architecture? And here, I definitely need to mention some of the partnerships that they have made. SAP Datasphere, when they were building this application, had a lot of partners involved with it. Some of the partners that I want to mention here are Collibra, Confluent, Databricks, DataRobo. So these are partners or applications or products that you see in the market, and they have really good strength in some of the areas. And all of these strengths are put on this Datasphere platform. Collibra is known for its wonderful data governance, data cataloging, and data privacy. And you have that in SAP Datasphere. Confluent, you know, for its ability for data streaming, and that's there on SAP Datasphere. The Databrick has the data lake architecture, and then DataRobot has a great platform for AI and ML for actionable insights. So all of these are now available on the SAP Datasphere, that making the tool really, really powerful. And this whole data fabric architecture comes from all of these partnerships. Now, I will want to also mention one more thing before I finish this. So it's the kind of change that SAP has embraced. I've been working on the SAP platform for at least 20 years now. In all these years, I've seen that SAP is a closed ecosystem. Once data comes into SAP, usually that data is available on SAP itself. But now SAP has embraced this open ecosystem, which means that it is able to connect to both SAP and non-SAP systems. And you're actually able to bring that, transform the data, and then not just keeping the data within SAP, you're even able to push that data into a lot of target systems other than SAP as well. SAP, non-SAP systems, cloud hyperscalers, and even reporting tools. So all of this is possible, and so businesses now no more depend on individual applications or tools for their solutions. It is from a lot of different tools, applications that they bring data. And so you need to have a platform that talks the common language of the context of data. And that is what is data fabric. And SAP Datasphere does that. And so I'd say SAP Datasphere is very synonymous with this data fabric architecture. And so businesses need to embrace this data fabric architecture and data sphere. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you, Manuel, for sharing your valuable insights with us on how SAP Datasphere helps business optimize their operations, innovate more rapidly, and gain a competitive edge by leveraging their data effectively. Next up, we have Syed. As Manuel has talked about the need for data fabric in the current scenario, Syed, could you please discuss with us the common challenges anyone faces while implementing the SAP Datasphere?
Sure, Neha. I'll definitely talk about some of the common challenges while adopting to SAP Datasphere. The very first being the data integration complexity. It is very important for the businesses or organizations to understand the 4 V's while adopting to big data lake solution like SAP Datasphere or any data lake per se. The volume of the data, the velocity of the data, the variety of the data, and also the veracity of the data. Let me elaborate these points. The volume of the data is how much of gigabyte, terabyte, or petabyte of data would be required by the organizations in order to perform their analytics on top of it. The volume of the data is the speed at which the data we are trying to integrate, right? So when we are trying to integrate, is it going to be real time? Is it going to be data needs to be federated, or can it be replicated daily, monthly, weekly, so on and so forth? The variety of the data is this data structured or unstructured? I can give an example of healthcare industry, where the data, one set of data would be structured like patient information, patient history. The other form of data could be unstructured, like doctor's notes or prescription. I would hardly know what my doctor has written in a prescription. The MRI scans, right? The fourth point being the veracity of the data. The information that we are getting, it pertains to how much it is reliable for the organizations to perform analytics on top. There are some other common challenges like data quality issue. I can give an example of one of our customer, which went for SAP S4HANA integration or ERP implementation, but they left their SAP ECC accounts unmigrated. So when we pulled the information of SAP S4HANA system and SAP ECC system into SAP Datasphere, the raw data information was not substantial unless and until we transform that information, right? The other aspect of the challenge is the data integration aspect. I would like to mention that Emmanuel just mentioned that SAP for the first time, has opened up with a lot of non-SAP connections. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. Likewise, with more connections comes more complexity, right? Complexity of integrating, complexity of making it an incremental delta, complexity of custom configuration, custom coding. Do we need to adopt for a new security and governance model, or shall we, follow the tried and trusted governance model? And for the audience, SAP Datasphere, in SAP Datasphere, everything starts with a space. So the data models that we create is within a space. The user is assigned to a space. The roles are also assigned to a space. So this is kind of a new environment that we have to adopt. But for me, the most important aspect is the change management aspect. There is a lot of unawareness to the users about the SAP's new ecosystem, right? It was called SAP Data Warehouse Cloud a couple of years ago. Now it is SAP Data Warehouse, SAP Datasphere. It is bundled in SAP BTP platform. You have a component called BW Bridge. Like, these are too many new terms for the users, right? And then there is a lot of complexity with the advanced data management, right? To all those organizations who are already using SAP BW system, they would know that their traditional artifacts are called as composite providers, info providers, or BEX queries, right? But in SAP Datasphere, it is either called remote table, it is called graphical view, entity relation model, analytical model, replication flows, right? So these are some new terms. And finally, the maturity of the product. It is really important for the organizations to know SAP's roadmap when they are implementing SAP Datasphere, so that we can use it to its full potential. Organizations should know, like Q2 2024, what is the release? What is the asset that I'm going to get? Q3 2024, what is the new feature that it is getting rolled out? I would want Emmanuel to elaborate further on this. So over to you, Emmanuel.
Right. So I'd also want to mention at least 3 challenges that we've found during the implementation phase. And I want all of you who are watching also to be careful about it. The first thing that I'll want to mention is about understanding the licensing model. Now, SAP's licensing model, I know all of you know that it's a little complex. And this being a new tool and a new add-on into the SAP BTP, understanding this licensing model comes with its own challenge. We initially wanted to have our own tenant at MOURI Tech, and then we purchased some licenses for SAP Datasphere because we wanted to know the inside out of the tool before we actually go for implementing these with customers. And then as we were actually trying to work on this tool, there were new features that were coming in every month, every quarter. And then we heard about this new edition called the SAP BW or the BW Bridge that was added onto the Datasphere. And we were trying to search on the Datasphere tenant, where is the BW Bridge? And we did not find it. And so we frantically were able to somehow reach the SAP product team. And then they said, so the BW Bridge licensing is additional to existing license. And so we had to go get that license. And then there were quite some challenges to actually get that going as well. So there are a lot of licensing model with more of these restrictions to extract data from SAP and the licenses involved with that. So there's quite some complexity in terms of licensing. So first, you need to iron that out. You need to understand exactly the licensing model. So it's a challenge I want you to be aware of. The second thing is understanding the data landscape itself. Now, the data landscape of the customer. Now, SAP Datasphere is a new tool, and there are a lot of features now loaded into it. And so before you actually get into the product, we need to have a very clear understanding about all the interfaces that this tool might be touching, right? Your existing system or an existing solution might only list a few, and there are future sources that might be added, future requirements for reporting tools or being data sent to other systems. All of these have to be listed down. The reason being, you want to first check, is there a correct implementation pattern in all the source systems given? Are there all the list of tools that you want to connect to available on the tool? Because right now I can say it's become stable, but initially when we started, there were new features added every week. Some of the connections was not there. And then we had to wait for a couple of weeks for a new edition to come through. We had to try with API connections and then realize that that feature was pushed in. So the new edition. So what I want you to understand is that there should be clarity about what are all the sources and the targets that you really want to use, right, within the client's environment. So that has to be listed. Don't get into the project just understanding a few of the interfaces that they're looking at, because your product, the end product that you're trying to deliver, might not be complete if you don't look at all the sources that are needed. At this time, I just want to mention that the SAP Datasphere product team were really, really helpful to us because in some scenarios, we were not actually able to understand because we went into the project, into a project, and we had a few unknowns because we committed that we will be able to connect, and that connection was not there at that point. But SAP helped us, and so we were able to complete it on time. So understanding the data landscape of the customer is really important. The third thing I'd want to mention is understanding the SAP Datasphere itself. So like I mentioned, the features and functions are added almost every week. Initially, it was week on week, then it was month on month, now quarter, and they have a very clear roadmap of what is coming in each month, what is coming in each quarter. All right. The reason why I'd mentioned that is because when we started doing the implementation, we were asked to export the data to a particular system. All right. And then at that point, SAP Datasphere did not have the ability to export it to a particular system like Excel or even to a third-party system. And so what we had to do is we had to build a bespoke solution to actually do that. And once we finished doing that, we realized that in the next month, SAP actually pushed that feature. And what we tried to do in 3 weeks to build that application to get that resolved, we were able to just go ahead and put in information there and then get it resolved in under 5 minutes. So the tool is changing. The tool is actually getting more features, more system connectivity, and more addition. And so that timetable is given. Until 2025 quarter two, you have a timetable of what new features are getting added. And so I want you to understand the tool. And then even in this month, there was a lot of new features in the modeling side and the cataloging side, the streaming side. So understanding the tool is absolutely necessary before you actually get into the project. So I'd say these three challenges added to what Syed said, I'd want you to consider before you actually get into an implementation project. Thank you.
Thank you, Syed and Emmanuel, for sharing your valuable insights with us. So, Syed, could you please also share with us your experience of working on SAP BW Bridge?
Sure, Neha. To be frank, the experience so far with BW Bridge has been challenging. And there are a lot of learnings which I'd discuss in today's webinar. But I want to start off with asking Emmanuel a question. What comes to your mind, Emmanuel, when I say the word bridge?
I'm a Marvel fan, Syed, and every time I hear this BW Bridge and all the graphics that SAP puts in, all that I can think of is the Bifrost in the movie Thor from Asgard to Earth.
Lovely. Very similarly. I must tell you that you are a Marvel fan because Thor walking on Bifrost Bridge from Earth to Asgard. Wow. Okay. So very similarly, SAP has provided this platform called as SAP BW Bridge, which acts as a migration of SAP BW artifacts into SAP Datasphere. Right. So if you have a the bridge here, I would call it as the journey of SAP BW artifact, let's say composite provider or BEX queries into SAP Datasphere, which is on-premise system, to Datasphere, which is on cloud, right? Now, with this, I have some self-realizations, right? The self-realization being, when is it required to opt for BW Bridge, right? When does it become optional, and when to exclude it? Let me elaborate these further, right? So that it becomes very clear, right? So let me start off with when SAP BW Bridge becomes essential, right? So if the businesses or organizations have already invested in SAP BW system, right, and they are still looking to modernize their traditional on-premise BW system and move towards a cloud platform, that's where BW Bridge actually helps them to use the investment that they have done so far for over 20-25 years, and then use that crucial data business model or logic that has been in place, right, which is crucial for the businesses to move to SAP Datasphere, which is on cloud, via the BW Bridge, right? That is Example number one. Point number two is when does it become, when does it really is optional to have SAP BW Bridge? So SAP BW as a whole product is in the market for over 25 years. 1998 is when it was launched. So for those many years as a product, SAP BW offers something called as business content, right? So if organizations are looking to standardize their reporting, standardize their data modeling, then they can use SAP BW Bridge, get the business content installed, and convert those artifacts into SAP Datasphere and use it, right? I always give this example, like this is going to give you a 20-meter head start in a 100-meter race, which is really good. When does it becomes optional, or when you can omit it, right? It's like we had one customer. They were the early adopters of SAP as an ERP itself. That is, they were for the first time implementing SAP solution. All their transaction data so far was on non-SAP sources. So to be frank, they don't need a BW bridge to connect and then enable business content and standardize something. They pretty much had to do a greenfield implementation, and hence BW bridge in this case would be not required. Now that brings me to the next set of things. So does BW bridge actually take your artifact and then put it into a Datasphere, which is easily usable, or are there any conversions? Are there any prerequisites? Let me talk it in the next slide. In the next slide, you would see that on the left-hand side, you have your traditional SAP BW 7.x. It can be on HANA DB, it can be on any DB, right? I have categorized it into two categories. The traditional objects, like the info object, DDP, transformation, your BAPIs, right, custom code. You have something called as classic objects. These are the objects which are info cubes, DSOs, multi-providers, right? These information will need to be moved into SAP Datasphere, right? So in the next portion, you would see that SAP Datasphere has a BW bridge. So if you see the dotted line, the classic objects are getting transitioned, right? They are getting transitioned into composite provider and advanced DSOs. And your traditional objects can be migrated. They can be remaining as is. But eventually in SAP Datasphere, as you can see in the next part, you would see that these are also getting converted into BW Bridge space as imported entities. Because I mentioned in my challenges, your traditional BW artifacts are going to get transitioned, right? So with this elaboration, you would get a gist of what is SAP BW Bridge, why it becomes essential or optional or not required, and also what is going to be an end product in SAP Datasphere, right? Now, customer might be asking, oh, I am in so-and-so version of my BW. What do I do? Where do I stand? So in the next slide, I have just summarized these things as if you are on the bottom left on any HANA database, BW 7.3 or BW 7.4 or BW 7.5, you have to use a conversion mechanism to move from into BW Bridge and into Datasphere, right? This conversion can be shell or it can be remote. Shell, as the name suggests, will only take the metadata, which is the structure of your data model, right? Whereas remote conversion will take the metadata as well as data of your data model, okay? But let's say if the customer is already using BW for HANA, they are already using HANA optimized objects, then there is a mechanism of lift and shift, which we call it as migration. These objects can directly be migrated into SAP BW Bridge and then transitioned in BW Bridge space as imported entities. Now, I'm sure there will be a lot of questions from the users, and hence we are offering a 2-week of workshop where we will come, analyze your system, discuss with you the modernization that that we can help you with. And in these 2 weeks, you would actually get a framework of where you are, what it needs to be done in order to migrate into a modern cloud data platform like SAP Datasphere. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you, Syed, for sharing your valuable experience with us. Syed and Emmanuel, can you also deep dive us into the success stories where we have successfully delivered SAP Datasphere to our customers?
Sure, Neha. Let me first take the success story. I'm really proud to actually introduce this success story and also the client. It's a healthcare client that we've implemented SAP Datasphere. And before I actually talk about their success story, I just want to give a little introduction about the client itself. So they are the largest and the most diversified marketer, wholesaler, and distributor of medical, pharmaceutical products. They're also in the animal care brands as well. Now, this particular customer, our client, is very new to the SAP landscape. And I'd say they are the first time adopters of the SAP ERP solution. Now, when we sat down with the stakeholders, these were the baseline requirements that we understood. All right. So at that point, they did not have a data warehouse. All their solutions were very siloed. They worked in individual departments. These individual departments had their own reporting on Excel. So they even wanted a good reporting tool, and also they mentioned that it would be good if the reporting is real time. And since this is a healthcare and their presence existed at least in 5 to 6 countries, and they have information coming in from a lot of different source systems, they mentioned the list of source systems that they had. And so they said, all of these sources, we would want that data to come in as much as possible, right? So they said, let's say there are 9 source systems that they had. They were expecting at least 7 to be connected to Datasphere, or they mentioned to the system that the warehouse solution should be able to at least connect to 7 or 8 of them, if not all the 9. So we at MOURI Tech went back to the drawing board. We did not go, there was a lot of tools available in the market. We did not just go by intuition, specifying a particular solution, but we went to the drawing board, studied each of these tools, and then we understood after their requirement that the best solution for them at that point was the SAP Data Warehousing Cloud. At that time, it was not called the Datasphere. It was still called the SAP Data Warehousing Cloud, or DWC, a common name. And so we mentioned that this was the tool that we want to use for their data warehouse. And we mentioned all the points of how good the tool was, but we mentioned that it was still evolving, and there'll be more features coming in which will only make it even better. And then along with that, we also mentioned that the reporting portfolio is to use SAC, or SAP's Analytics Cloud. So they agreed to it because they wanted real-time reporting as well. So we mentioned all the features of it, the vibrant visualizations that are available, and also the planning feature that if they wanted to use, that we can enable that as well. So with all of that said, we went about using Data Warehousing Cloud. Somewhere in the month of March, SAP brand named this as the SAP Datasphere. And that change was seamless because from DWC to Datasphere, we did not have any issues in terms of models or data. And then after that, every month or every week, we saw new features getting added. And then initially, when we did not have all the source systems connections possible, we saw that all of them were ticked out. So all the 9 source systems from where they were using data, primarily the S4 system, and then they had the Salesforce, they had a few databases that they were using, a few flat files, and all of those we were able to tick off as well. And so we were able to use the models that were there in the Datasphere, and there was seamless integration between the SAP Datasphere and the SAC. And they were astonished with the amount of visualization that was available on the reporting tool, and also the integration that was there between the SAP Datasphere and SAC. Now, after this solution was implemented, there was a great change in the approach at how business users were able to use that data. They said that we have actually empowered them to make data-driven decisions with confidence. And then the impact of this data-driven approach was felt all through the organization, from optimizing supply chain operations to enhancing customer experiences, real-time insights, and also decision making. All of that became much easier. SAP Datasphere was able to bring data at real time from a lot of these source systems. Some of them were not real time at that point, but majority of all the data coming from all the source systems was real time. So with every decision they made, it was backed by data. They were able to stay agile and ahead in the competition as well. And then for pushing or broadcasting their data from the SAC to all the users, we had to use a third party because that feature was not there on SAC. And we use a third party tool called APOS for broadcasting these reports to users. Now, the advantage they mentioned about the tool SAP Datasphere was the business layer that was available in Datasphere for users, for business users, that it actually empowered them that they could look at the fields that they wanted and they could build individual reports all by themselves. And so the tool allowed them to or actually empowered them. So they were really, really happy. I'm proud of this implementation. We have productionized 2 regions and we still have to for 3 more regions. It's an ongoing project and so many learnings from that. I'm really happy about this implementation.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I'll take the next success story. This is about transforming the legacy SAP BW system and moving it into Datasphere. This is a very good story to know when exactly we can use SAP BW Bridge. The customer had SAP S/4HANA implementation. They were also using SAP ECC for some of their business processes, right? They've hugely invested in SAP BW system because they wanted to connect SAP data. They wanted to connect other non-SAP data like Salesforce, where you get the data or information about opportunities, right? So in SAP BW system, Salesforce data was providing opportunity data. SAP systems were providing the sales data, right? And then there was a very crucial business model that was created, which also were performing analytics on top of it and reporting it to C-suite, right? Although the business or the customer wanted to move to a modern data cloud platform, they were not sure of how much of this investment being done can be utilized in SAP Datasphere or any other data lake per se, right? So we actually proposed SAP BW Bridge, but the business wanted the statistics, obviously. So we ran the readiness check of their SAP BW on-premise system if it is going to be migrated via BW Bridge into Datasphere. Customer was excited to see that 70% of their artifact can be moved into SAP Datasphere using the BW Bridge. 70% is a big mark in today's world, right? And all of these source systems that we are talking about, be it SAP S/4HANA, there is a standard connection available. Be it SAP ECC system, there is a standard connection available in Datasphere. For Salesforce, SAP, as we discussed, that it has opened their connections. We used open connectors to pull the Salesforce opportunity data directly connected with Datasphere, right? So now the customer was able to not just migrate their existing model into SAP Datasphere, but was able to do visualization on top, analytical visualization. And then they can connect all of these sources into SAP Datasphere to get the latest feed as well. So in a nutshell, we are talking about having an on-premise BW system on which the business has implemented, invested its investment, right? And they're trying to migrate towards a modern cloud solution. We run the readiness check. We showed them the result. Any other, cloud data platform would not have provided the solution to say them that how much percentage can you migrate and how much you have to reinvest in, right? So this was a very crucial solution. They were able to retain their logic and the business model. They were able to migrate to a cloud data migration platform. And as we speak, now there is a provision that they are now discussing with us, can we decommission our BW system and move everything into a cloud data platform? That's a very big thing. You have an on-premise system, you want to get rid of it, you want to move towards a modern cloud data platform. You have a solution now. I don't think any other cloud platform, although they might provide you with some prerequisites, but not with this much clarity. So this is one more very good example of when to use SAP BW Bridge to its full potential. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you, Sayed and Emmanuel, for sharing these success stories. I hope it will help our attendees to solve their implementation problems with the expertise that you both have provided. It's been an enlightening session that has not only deepened our understanding about SAP Datasphere, but also provided actionable insights for all SAP users across the industries. Thank you for joining us and contributing to this engaging conversation. Until next time, keep striving for clarity and efficiency in your SAP journeys. With that, now it's the time to open the floor to questions from our audience. So please feel free to ask any questions you may have about SAP Datasphere adoption. And I'm sure our attendees have a lot of questions for our panel, so let us look at those questions. So here is the first question, and this is for you, Emmanuel. So the question is, how will SAP Datasphere integrate with both SAP and non-SAP systems and business applications?
Thank you, Neha. This is actually, it used to be a difficult question 1 year back or 6 months back, but now looking at the number of features and functions and connections possible that have been pushed into this tool, it actually is a very simple question. Now, SAP Datasphere provides a large set of default connections to access data from a wide range of sources. It could be on-premise, it could be on cloud, even both SAP and non-SAP systems. And you can even push data to other systems as well. And this has been added in the last quarter as well. Now, if you go to the main pane of the SAP Datasphere tool, you will find a tab called Connections, and there you have a list of connections that are most widely used across industries. And now, once you can go ahead and use these connections, and these connections are specific to the space that you're using. The space is a way of how governance is done in the SAP Datasphere. It is limited to who has access to that space. They can utilize that connection, right? Now, more and over and more, you have something called as the open connector setup. So where you have a lot of connections that are possible that you can connect to other systems as well. So there are many connections that are available. You will actually be shocked at the number of possible connections that are there and how SAP really opened their windows to a lot of non-SAP systems. Now, in terms of connectivity, usually there's this traditional approach of how you bring data into a tool, and then that's the usual ETL process, and then you massage the data in there, and then you probably push the data to target systems or reporting tools. And then there is the ability to federate data. So here you have remote tables where you have virtual access of the tables from the source system, and also you can persist the data on Datasphere as well. So each specific to the models that you're utilizing. And then the regular classic integration that I just mentioned, where you are able to bring data into Datasphere, house it there, build a warehouse, build connections, transformations, and all of that, and then push it. You also have the external tools to which you can send. So in all, what I mention is that the tool has evolved so much from how it was before, that you have a wide range of connections that you can make. Now, let's say you're not seeing a specific connection or direct connection to an existing tool. You still have the APIs through which you can connect. You still can make ODBC connections and JDBC connections to that tool database, and you can connect to that also. And more and about that, you can also connect to the SAP product team, or you can take our guidance, because we went through this over and over, because we were supposed to make we even actually did a hackathon in which we were showing the YAD management. And so we had to build connections for some of the IoTs and other databases where connections were not available. And SAP product team helped us to basically connect these using APIs to both push the data into Datasphere and also push it from Datasphere into other applications. So we have quite some knowledge now on all the connections that are there. So yeah, I'd say this tool is evolved very well, and you're actually able to have data integration, not just to SAP tools, but a lot of non-SAP tools.
Thank you, Madam. So let's take another question from our audience, and this is for you, Sayed. So the question is, what are the specific technical requirements and potential challenges we might face when integrating SAP BW Bridge with DataSphere in our landscape?
That's a question from Josh. Yes, it's a technical question, but I'll try to make sure to answer it at a high level so that it becomes understandable to all the crowd as well. The first and foremost thing would be to perform a readiness check to make sure you understand where exactly and how much would be the percentage that you would be playing around to migrate. The second challenge being you need to be very sure of what conversion methodology are you using. Is it going to be a shell conversion or is it going to be a remote conversion? The reason I'm specifying this is if you're opting for shell conversion, you're only moving your artifact, you're not moving the data. But if you're moving with a remote conversion, you're moving not just the artifact or metadata, you're also moving the transaction data with it. And hence, you have to have a prerequisite of DMIS. Now, supposedly, if you want to connect or get rid of this SAP BW system, which is the on-premise system, and want to do all your operations from SAP Datasphere, in order to do this migration of BW Bridge, you have to make sure as a prerequisite to have your SAP data sources enabled with ODP. Right? SAP will not take any other data source right now at this stage as we are speaking. So yeah, these are some of the technical things that needs to look out for. Over to you, Neha.
So let's take one more question from our audience, which is, what are the different reporting tools SAP Datasphere can consume?
All right, I'll take that and I'll pass it to Emmanuel. Well, in theory, you have SAP Analytics Cloud, which is seamlessly integrated with Datasphere. So if you're using SAP Datasphere, which is on cloud, and SAP Analytics Cloud is a reporting or visualization tool which is also on cloud, you don't need to create another model. You can directly consume the model in SAP Datasphere in a story for building the reporting or visualization. When it comes to all other reporting tools like Power BI, like Tableau or Click, which are my market pioneers, there are limitations. Right now, as we speak, there is only a beta version of how to connect these, reporting visualizations with reporting tools with Datasphere. But that's where we are saying, if we do a workshop, we'll do all those prerequisites and provide you with a correct routing map of how much percentage of or what artifacts can be consumable when using these other reporting tools. SAP Datasphere also offers you to connect to your Excel, as in Microsoft Excel, with the JDBC and ODBC connector. Emmanuel, would you like to elaborate more on this?
Yeah, let me take it up from there. So basically, there are default connectors that SAP provides. So you don't really have to build some connection, and that's what Syed was trying to say. So there are default connections that are available, and there are connections that you can actually make. These are the beta connections that he's talking about, where he was mentioning about Power BI, Tableau. These are at the moment not available directly as default connections. So when you go into the connections, you will not directly see that. But on the underlying side of SAP Datasphere is the HANA database. And so you can create a database user, and that can be used to connect to a lot of tools. There might be one or two limitations, like let's say you can't pull in a hierarchy or you can't drill down to an item level. Some scenarios or some tools have that restriction, but majority of them are able to actually iron out every issue, and you're able to report on top of that as well. So you can create a database user, and then you can use that to connect to, let's say, Power BI, or you can even connect to the data intelligence cloud, or you can connect to BI clients or Tableau. And he was mentioning about MS Excel, right? So that is also there. Beta versions of these connections are there, but you will have to use that as an individual connection on each desktop. It doesn't apply to all the connections that are there within the enterprise. Everybody has to install that beta connection, and then you will be able to connect. So the reporting side of things, seamless integration is with the SAP Analytics Cloud. But with other reporting tools, you are able to connect. We've seen that we can go ahead and report on top of that. Visualizations are there. In some, there are real-time abilities. In some, there are not. So these kind of limitations are there. So you will have to understand before you commit to the client.
Thank you, Manuel and Sayed, for this insightful answers.
Neha, I would like to answer one more question, which is very relevant to the BW Bridge. Gaurav has asked, if we are in BW 7.5 on HANA post 2027, as the support is going to be ending, can we migrate to BW 4 HANA or directly to Datasphere using BW Bridge? Gaurav, to answer your question, it all depends on how you have created your artifacts. In SAP BW 7. If you are already on 7.5 and on HANA, and you have created your artifacts as composite providers and ADSOs, which are HANA optimized, we would suggest use BW Bridge and move towards Datasphere directly. But if you have doubt, skepticism about different sources that you are connecting to, I would encourage you to have a workshop with us, and we will provide you with a detailed analysis. Very similarly, there is another question from Rufus, who asked if we can apply dynamic filter on remote tables when fetching the data from Salesforce. So, well, actually, right now, as we speak, there is no filtering mechanism at remote table level, but you can actually apply the filter at a view level and use the data replication flow on that view, not on the remote table. So that way, when you are pulling the data, you are actually, your query would go from a view rather than a remote table. There is one more question about the connectivity, and hence I am taking it. Regarding the reporting tool connectivity flexibility, can we use JDBC connector when connecting to Microsoft Power BI, or is it going to be ODBC? Well, to be frank, JDBC and ODBC is only available for Microsoft Excel connectivity right now. For Power BI, you can only use open connectors, that too in a beta version, as Emmanuel has mentioned. I hope I have answered all the questions. Yeah, over to you, Neha.
Thank you once again, Emmanuel and Sayed, for answering those attendees' questions. We have tried answering all the questions posted to us, but you can still reach out to MOURI Tech inquiry team with more questions or for more insights and details. Email to inquiry@mouritech.com for further queries, and you'll find our social media platform page in the chat box. Do like the page and stay updated. Thank you for giving us your time and attending today's session. I request you to fill the feedback form, as we are always focused on getting better. Have a great day or evening.